Tenasane. I have the great honor to speak to all of you. I would like to try the same as I do the last few days, last few times I am speaking to people. Before I actually giving a sermon, I would like to start with a meditation. Because, I don't know, somehow that's it worked last few times really well. So, what does that mean? It literally just means we sit together, and I can assume that most of you are not very new to the Dhamma. So, if I ask you to sit down and close your eyes, then you know at least roughly what to do. You won't be lost. And it's not that I will not say anything. I will also say something. So I'll guide you based on what comes up in my mind. And it will take it could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't think much more than that. So it's basically just time for us to partly apply what we have learned and just to relax and to be here. And then I will tell you some points, you can think about it, and you can use that for your contemplation as well. So it's both a little bit of a sermon as well as a practical application as well. And then we can talk about the points later. And we can talk about anything else that you might have that you would like to talk about. Okay, so before we do that, however, we should pay gratitude to the Supreme Buddha and pay our homage by chanting the Namaskara together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good. So then, let us start. All you really need to do is don't fall asleep. And you don't have to close your eyes. And even if you fall asleep, then that's fine. Whenever you know that you're awake again, then just try not to fall asleep again. And try to listen. And you can also stand if you feel too sleepy, okay? So that is true for the sermon as well as for meditation. Okay. In meditation, in nature, there's really nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with what people are doing. And there's nothing wrong with what your mind is doing. But sometimes you will observe your mind having a lot of opinions. On what should be and what should not be. And in this time together, we are not here to change ourselves by force. You are not here to spot your mistakes or spotting others' mistakes, because there's something wrong with us. Actually, there's something wrong with us and there's nothing wrong with us, both at the same time. But the very first step that we have to practice in every situation is acceptance. That in itself can be very hard at times. It can seem impossible sometimes, and that's also okay. When the mind is very vexed, when the mind is very agitated, very restless, it's not very easy to even come to a good attitude. That's fine. Sometimes you didn't have the time to contemplate with wisdom about what has happened in the past or what has happened in your life. But there's always the moment to apply the Dhamma now. See, the defilements of yesterday are no longer there. What has happened yesterday has happened yesterday, but the causes, ignorance and attachment, this is what we have to be mindful about. So we always have a responsibility. But responsibility can only really work with acceptance at the beginning. See, the Buddha has taught us the nature of cause and effect. And that every event in this world is essentially never a mistake, never wrong. Wrong is only a feeling, and right also is only a there's two kinds of right. There's one kind of right when we feel that it happens the way we think it should happen. if everyone is on time, for example, if everything works according to a plan, then that is right based on jati. Then mind will feel pleasure, and it will say that's right. Imagine there's no flower offering before a sermon. Sometimes our mind would feel that's wrong. There's something missing. That's just an example. And the second kind of right is when actually anything is right. If you consider about nature, if you consider about reality, right means when the causes come together, the effect manifests. So an effect is always right, isn't it? If you can observe the things that are happening, and consider about this idea. The bird singing, sometimes we feel the bird singing is very fitting to the sermon, or it's not very fitting to the sermon. Somebody washing his clothes, it's very fitting to the sermon, or very unfitting to the sermon. So there's this idea that the sound that you're hearing somehow overlaps with the sermon, with what you're doing. Take as an example, when you're learning for an exam and you're listening to the TV, somebody else is watching TV. Don't you feel like the sound of the TV is disturbing you from learning for the exam? Now here's where it gets really interesting and liberating also. Because where does the learning happen? Where does the sermon happen right now? Is the sermon something that happens in front of you, around you? Or is it not better to say that? Is it not better to say that when this voice appears in your mind, when this sound is generated in your mind, that's when you feel the sermon. So when this particular sound happens, you are someone who's listening to a sermon. This feeling of sermon happens. This spiritual atmosphere, feeling happens. But that happens in this thought, in this mind. It's not in front of you. It's not surrounding you. Therefore, the moment that you hear the bird, the moment that you hear somebody washing his clothes, the moment that you hear the TV when you're learning for an exam, actually, are you learning for the exam while you're listening to the TV? Where's the learning for the exam when the sound of the TV manifests? Have you ever asked yourself this question? Because the learning of the exam is seeing paper, seeing books, thinking about biology, thinking about mathematics, thinking about taxes and anything else. So it's thinking. It's a thought. But when there's a sound, where's the thought? Where's the sight? Where are all these things? See, now you can realize that disturbances are not really possible. Can you disturb a citta? Because a citta is not something continuous, right? You can only disturb this sermon if it's happening in front of you. Where is the spiritual feeling in front of you? Is it in the chair? In the table? Is it in the white clothes? Is it in the whiteboard? Is it in the rope? Is it in the AC? Is it in the people? When do you bring the spirituality that you have right now? Where do you bring that from? Do you take it from your cupboard, from your locker? Is it stored in your clothes? Is it something that happens on Saturdays? Would it happen if you would go to the bar on Saturdays? Is Saturday just a spiritual day? Has it been for you in this way always? So you don't really bring the spirituality to the monastery, right? You bring white clothes. You bring yourself. Even where in this outside monastery is spirituality? Where is this purity that you feel? In wood? In stones? In flesh and blood? In food? See, that's why the birds, they don't really know about that. Can you do two things at the same time? Are you thinking about what I'm saying while I'm talking, or what's actually happening is causes come together and sound manifests, and causes come together and thinking manifests? So which one of these are you doing? Can you stop the thinking? These are just some ideas to explore. See, you have done a lot of merits over the past few days. Have you done them? But merits are there nonetheless. Merits are real. Otherwise, how about these effects? How about this effect? Merits are real, although maybe there's no one to do that in ultimate reality. But we have done a lot of merits. So now is the chance to use them. See, even if we have not been able to use every opportunity in the last week to do a merit, haven't others done a lot? It could be anyone. Let's forget about ourselves. So many others have come today to the sermon, to the monastery, because they want to improve their lives, because they want to seek a new path, they want to continue practicing the Dhamma. There's a lot of minds seeking liberation. It's one of the rarest things in this universe, a mind seeking Nibbāna. It happens very rarely for a mind to strive towards Nibbāna. How can we say something happens rarely, by the way, if everything happens when the causes come together? But it's very rare. It needs a lot of particular causes for a mind to seek that. And now we are all together. These minds all come. So whenever you see someone else, is it really another person that you are seeing? Or isn't it the mind that in that instance, the mind that arises, isn't that your mind? Even if I tell you that so many people have been teaching in school in the last week even what you're seeing right now is also your mind. So how can you feel inferiority when that thought comes to you? How can we feel that they have done it, but it's not me? Is that fair to say? Now let's slowly finish the meditation. And you can open your eyes and we can discuss together. How was the experience? I hope you, I'm saying it all the time, but it's still important. I hope you didn't fall asleep. So, leading on to from the point I was thinking about at the end, I wanted to explain another small point. So, with this Nibbāna, it's something very. This is a point I was thinking about yesterday. See, I think you and me, we are all very successful, right? I must guess that you must have been very successful in your lay lives. And so we know how to be successful. So what does it mean to be successful in Nibbāna? When you are part of the Sila Shravika program or Sila Shravaka program, when you're part of Sila Vasi program, or when you're just here as a visitor, what does it mean to be successful? Or even as a monk? See, we have these criteria of success everywhere we are, right? For example, you should go and visit, your attendance is one of the criteria to measure your success. Attendance, and then of course your knowledge sometimes will be asked from you. There are so many kind of key performance indicators to measure your success. But how can you measure Nibbāna, your progress to Nibbāna? Because say that you are coming to the monastery every day, all the time. So your attendance is 90%. So that means you must be getting closer to Nibbāna, isn't it? And let's say there's someone who's coming 10% of the time. You see him coming very rarely. I don't think I don't know, but maybe there's no such a person, but imagine there's a person. He's coming very rarely and he doesn't really bother much and he doesn't really try much, and he sometimes even in the programs he or she is sleeping. And just imagine, I've never seen anyone like that, to be honest, but you just imagine. So then sometimes we might feel that, oh, this person is not going anywhere. So we feel, sometimes we might even get angry. As in, why is this person not doing anything? Why is she doesn't understand the value of this, for example. I mean, there are many kinds of emotions that can be there. See, when someone else is doing that, when somebody else is behaving like that, when we feel that it's someone else, there's a point where we don't care about that anymore, isn't it? Because it's not your Nibbāna. So your attendance brings you to Nibbāna, and his attendance brings him to Nibbāna, right? So then, if he doesn't come, what does that have to do with your Nibbāna? Nothing, right? So that means we might as well forget it. Do you see where I'm coming from? So you can have the highest performance indicators in all these aspects, but it's actually, at the end of the day, it's not worth anything if we can't realize or come to this awareness that the person that's there in front of me is not another person out there. Because if you can see that this is also your mind, see, then you can't feel that it's someone else. And if you don't feel that it's someone else, then this feeling that it doesn't matter, it's like I have other things to do. It's not really relevant to me. That no longer happens. I think this Jesus, he talks about this love your neighbor kind of concept. So is there a limit to that sort of love? That has no limits. So Naika Hamdru or Amadasantero and Guru Hamdru, but in one of the sermons by Amadasantero, he explained his understanding of this statement of love your neighbor. So it can be seen in, you can understand it in two ways. There's a spatial dimension and then there's a timely dimension, let's say. So loving your neighbor means both I'm sitting here, you're sitting there, and I'm not just loving this right part more than the left part. That is a spatial sort of dimension. And the other part is this timely dimension. Timely means the things that you have done in the past, the things that I have done in the past, things that you're going to do in the future, things that I'm going to do in the future. See, because these are also just chittas, right? It's not you who's going to do it or me who's going to do it. These are chittas which are going to arise or which have arisen, isn't it? So these ones should also be loved. So this is the concept of love your neighbor. Now in this case of, so let's say there's a person who doesn't really have high performance indicators. So when you can realize, or when we realize that it's not another person, but this is a feeling, then that is a vipaka that has manifested in your mind. So in this case, then there's something we can do, because if there's no, ultimately it all comes back down to this point that my Nibbāna and others' Nibbāna, there's no such a thing, right? So realizing that this is just the mind, then you can think to yourself, okay, me being careless is the wrong way. Something like careless, not caring, or being unmoved by someone else's situation. There's a certain element of, well, I'm not talking about this upeksha kind of feeling that the Buddha had or Arahants have, right? That also exists. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this feeling you see somebody suffer, but it's not you, so that doesn't matter. This kind of feeling, do you know what I mean? I can definitely tell you, if I was in university and I write a good exam and somebody else writes not a good exam, who cares? Like, who cares? It's not me, right? I mean, yes, then also we can feel not just who cares, we can also feel like, I'm happy it happened like that. Like there is some sort of aversion even, right? So when we feel that, I even wish you, when we are happy about someone else's low performance, that's another thing. I'm just saying that it doesn't really, since it's not me, who cares? So this point that I wanted to explain you is that, see, even when you have the highest key performance indicators, even when you're doing everything that you're supposed to do for Nibbāna, which is all the things that you're doing, right? See, our mind can easily create an identity out of that as well. And then, if somebody else doesn't do that, then that's not my problem. But an Arhat wouldn't think like that, right? Because he doesn't feel that I am going to Nibbāna and he's going to Nibbāna. He doesn't see that because of this love your neighbor kind of principle. So then there's something we can do. What is it that we have to do? I don't know, maybe not much. Sometimes you can't do much for another person. Sometimes you can. But at least getting rid of the bias in your mind is what we can do. Because if there's any merits, if there's anything, any meritorious merits that this person has done, or this mind has done, better to say, they cannot flow through you if you have this bias, if we have this bias. If any of us has this bias. So the point I tried to explain is success with Nibbāna doesn't work the same way like in worldly success. Although in these programs and everything that we're doing in the monastery, there's no way to access your real progress to Nibbāna. How can we do that? We can't measure that. We can measure your attendance. We can measure what we see from the outside. See, in our lay life, in my lay life at least, I would have thought, no, look, I have all these great key performance indicators, so I'm done. That's what it means. That's what I have to do. In Nibbāna, it's not like that. Because as long as you feel that you have them and then there are others who don't have them, then you have that gap. That's fine. The gap is fine because, see, we are not rushing. We need to go step by step. And we have to just see where are the flaws. Seeing the flaws is something entirely different than chasing the flaws because we are like on a sprint to Nibbāna. Sometimes that is it doesn't really work, right? Have you ever tried to sprint to Nibbāna? I feel my mind happens to do that all the time because I have been, I don't know, but I have been practicing sprinting most of my lives, isn't it? Sprinting as in you observe where you are today compared to where you should be. Then sometimes Nibbāna can seem like the most hardest thing to do. Because you have a formal guide, you have a formal criteria for Nibbāna, isn't it? Buddha has said, Raga kayo, Dvesha kayo, Moha kayo. So every defilement that you have can be another sign of you failing on this path. And then you feel like a failure. That's not how it should be. I must say. And so you can see how much our mind makes us suffer. Even that, it just doesn't want to, not our mind actually. The mind is really innocent, as you all know. The jati thing. So that's why recently I remember something that one of my teachers said, which is, I'm not here for the goal itself, which means I'm more here for what I become while I go towards the goal. So what does it mean? Like, imagine Nibbāna happens to you in 100 million years. Then if you're here for the goal, that will be very stressing, very demotivating, very upsetting. Yeah, the goal should be nice. The goal should smell nice. The goal should be nice. Otherwise, why would we go there? True. But when we consider the other point that was said by my teacher at that time, is who you become while you're going there. So there has to be a certain element of enjoyment. Not just a certain element, there has to be enjoyment while walking towards. And it starts, of course, with enjoying to do good with others. With others, now I'm saying it explicitly, with others. Very simply. And being happy about yourself. And then it continues with getting gradual understanding, little by little, about the Dhamma. Adopting attitudes, improving attitudes, and also seeing things that you can do that you never thought you could do. I'm sure you had these experiences as well. I'm sure that the things that most of you have done in your lay lives were not the things that you're doing now. Actually, I must say, for me, I was always working in the office or on desks, right? So like mostly with my book and pen. I didn't know I was able to cook, for example. I not recently, but even before I came to the monastery, I found that out. And in many other things, sometimes simple things. That's also part of this, also very mundane part, but it's very important part. Very important. You can't skip that part, I think. And sometimes there are people who say, I think it's both ways. There are some people who are very, let's say, intellectual people, educated people. For them, sometimes it can be a joy to do something very simple. Tending after the herbs and gardening or peeling onions, I don't know, cooking. And then there are people who always feel that things like teaching you can't do. But I'm sure some of you have been able to have the opportunity to teach in our monastery, and you will realize that teaching is something we can all do. You don't have to be a teacher for teaching. Sometimes that can be a hindrance, right? Because when you're a teacher, then you have so much. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about what jati does with the teaching, with becoming a teacher. Because when I am a teacher, then I have very clear ideas of what should happen, what shouldn't happen. I have this experience learning a language. I was learning a language, and I have I know I have a friend, let's say, an acquaintance from my lay life, and this person helps me to learn the language. This person is a very skilled language teacher, has been teaching a lot of languages, and when I'm talking, this is the language I'm talking here is Polish. So when I talk Polish to this acquaintance, I realized, or we both realized that this person can't enjoy listening to me because I don't know the grammar. And I tell you that if you learn the grammar, it's a huge task. 6 kind of cases and however many endings, different endings, depending on. So in English, you don't have any endings mostly, right? It's very, you never change anything in the words. But in Polish, you do. So if you know a lot of grammar, you will feel like, this is, you can't, you lose the fun. Because I guess that happens when our mind has these fixed ideas. So, but sometimes, if I take a random person on the street and talk with him on Polish, then this person will be really enjoying because he doesn't focus on the grammar mistakes. He focuses only on what I'm trying to say, and then he will just talk with me. So isn't he also actually sometimes a better teacher than a teacher? Can happen. So it brings me back to the point. You should be able to enjoy the journey. And mistakes are not something to get worried about. But something that we can, now that we have something we can try on applying, now that there's something we can do with these mistakes, at least we can try to apply the Dhamma. We can try, right? We might as well try, as well as we can ask others. So these are great avenues to explore, great avenues to walk along that we didn't have before. And then we are slowly growing in this path. So, who are you becoming from day to day? On Thursday, Guru Hamdu was talking to us about, actually he was kind of appreciating individual people as examples for the work that has happened. I think he must do the same in the Mahadeshan as well. Many times. Like the projects that are going on and some of the responsible people who do that. And he was also trying to explain this point, who are we now, who are you now compared to where you have been. So at that time I didn't really understand it that much. I mean, as in, it was not something I could feel. But later, maybe yesterday, when I was thinking about it more, it was a bit easier to understand. Like, I'll take an example. Think about what you are doing now, every day. I can fairly say you all. So think about, take some days of your life at this moment and see what's your activities are. You are aren't all of us somehow or another very engaged in meritorious activities? So how is your life today? I mean, just a few years I was doing something completely different. Maybe I think, working really hard, but not for this kind of purpose. Or playing around, computers, traveling. So when I was since we had some situation in the monastery in this last week, health-wise, I'm not sure how much you know, but nothing serious. So there was a time when we all had to gather together in the Jethavanarama, which is where we sleep, and there all our beds are there. So I was sitting on the bed, and I didn't feel tired, so I thought I might as well meditate. So I closed my eyes and I listened to all the monks doing various things. Some of them were talking, some of them were sleeping. It was because there was nothing really to do for us, and we were asked to sleep because of the situation of the ice. I mean, everyone had to shower, and we had to do all these hygienic measures. So then, when I was listening to these sounds, talking and sleeping, I feel like, oh, I'm here in this Jethavanarama, which is, I'm sitting on my bed. When you're sitting on a bed, it's really hard to meditate, isn't it? What's the difference between this place and the bed? I mean, what we call Dharmasana. I think this one is more fluffy than my bed, actually. So I can't really give comfort credits to my bed, right? Actually, the bed I'm having right now, and I'm most grateful for that. It's mostly just a plank of wood. It's good for my back. I used to think maybe a few years ago that it's something uncomfortable, but I have tried it a few times. I can say it's so comfortable. It's much better. I want to have a hardwood wooden mattress. I mean, it's not a mattress, a ground rather than this. So, however, the question is now what's Dharmasana about this compared to what's baddie about the bed? If I just take some metal planks left and all the corners, yeah, then that's mostly the bed I'm having. It's a little bit longer because I wouldn't be able to stretch myself on this. But how is it that when I'm sitting on this, I don't feel like sleeping. I feel like this is something very holy. This is for preaching. But when I'm in the bed, I feel like meditating is so hard. I would like to sleep. Especially when everyone else around me is also sleeping, right? And then the most cruel thing is if it starts raining. If it's raining, then the blanket should be there. And I should be under the blanket. Then you do that for a while and you realize, okay, that's not the right thing to do. It's not. I can't. That means. I mean that's not. So that also gets boring, and you know that Apamarina sampadeta, so you should do something. So then you meditate. And at the beginning it's hard, but then there were things I realized. As example, the rain. Imagine it starts raining now. Maybe you will wouldn't you maybe feel tiredness happening to you? Somehow? Maybe not now, but when you're at home or sometimes. So, but when you're mindfully aware, what will happen then? I can only tell you what happens when I am mindfully aware. That's not always easy to do, but when it happens, does it rain outside? Is it raining in the outside? Is there sunshine in the outside world now? It seems to be a lovely day. When you look at the sunrise, the sun rays coming through the curtain, see. But when you listen to the rain and when you realize that this is just a sound that's manifesting in your mind, not in your mind. It's not like it happens in the mind, but that is the mind. That's what we call mind. Sound is what we call mind. So then where's this special raininess out there? What is rainy about a vibration? What is rainy about? Even if it's water falling, just water falling, let's accept that it is water that exists in the outside world and water is falling. Then what's rainy about that? Nothing, right? Because plenty of situations when water falls, we don't feel the same. Which brings us to the same example with the bed. It is essentially a bed which I'm sitting on, right? But why do we feel so different? And when you listen to the sound of snoring, I think that's also good fitting to the meditation we have done, because snoring is one of the most cruel things that happens to you when you want to sleep. It disturbs you and me. I'm saying anyone. It disturbs us when we feel that there's a continuous person who wants to sleep, right? I'm here and I want to sleep. Now this comes and disturbs me. It's a little bit like that. I should draw it something like that. So this is this continuous me who wants to sleep, and now something comes and it changes the path that it wants to take, that it takes, which is something like that. I want to sleep. but now I have to listen to this. But see, where does the sleeping happen? Now, the example I gave in the meditation was this. Because I listened to this, someone was having a bath, or I can't say, there was some water in a bucket. and that happened. So I was thinking, yeah, actually, if you're very sensitive, you might feel that it disturbs this atmosphere. You means we might feel like that. So then I was thinking, yeah, if the sermon happens here, then that might be disturbing, isn't it? But is it that what happens? Where does the sermon happen? There's this seeing happens. Seeing of you, let's say, for you all. Then that creates this perception of feeling of sermon. Another seeing happens. And then it creates another instance of sermon. Not the same sermon, but we label it the same quality, but not the same. I mean, similar quality, but not same sermon, right? That's why we say you are not listening to the sermon since 2 hours or 1 hour, isn't it? Because this mind right now, does it have a past? No, right? Mind has no past. Okay. So this is when the sermon happens. This is what a sermon is. Seeing. Seeing. Hearing, like that. Hearing my voice, or the monk's voice. Now, suddenly, hearing a bucket. So when the bucket happens, where's the sermon? When you hear me, where's the red monk that you are hearing? Where's the red monk that you're hearing? Let's say like that. The red monk that you are hearing. So you are hearing and you are seeing, and you are hearing the red monk. Is it like that? Can you understand what I'm trying to say? Seeing happens. Red. Seeing happens. Now hearing happens. Sound. So these are two effects. Just like these are two effects. Like that. So how can you disturb something? You can only disturb if you feel this is a sermon and this is a bucket. Isn't it? And take the example of when you are learning for an exam. Same, actually. The TV and the exam. I'm learning, now he plays the piano and that disturbs me. But when you can be aware, or when this mindful awareness happens in this thought, it will realize, this is just a thought, this is just an effect. So then you wouldn't feel that you are getting disturbed. As in, you wouldn't feel any vexation. You might, because mind always has this quality of aggregation. Aggregation means, see, even an arahant will, because what actually happens, these will be combined in the mind to one, let's say, mental story. So we should better say it like that. Because if this aggregation wouldn't happen, you couldn't even say that you are listening to the red monk, isn't it? Because the redness has happened, gone. The hearing happens. So what can the hearing say? It can never say anything about red. But aggregation is what makes it possible for us to say that. Not that it happens like the way we think it does, but actually for us to function in this world, aggregation is the only way it works. Otherwise we couldn't talk about anything. It's more like that. So here, so it's fine to know that I'm listening to a sermon and there's someone who's having a wash. The knowledge is fine, but understanding this point that I'm trying to explain, this an arising and passing away, that's enough. You wouldn't feel that you are getting disturbed. So then I was sitting on my mattress, and then I realized that there's no bad. There's no bad. What's really there? Some iron bars, some cushion, some wood. So when you see it like that, you don't want to sleep anymore. You don't feel this raga of sleeping. So you can take a moment to contemplate on this, as I'm trying to explain. When you listen to the people talking, you can feel lonely, right? When other people are talking and you are listening to them, you can feel, or you can feel disturbed. It could be either one of these two or anything else. When you hear people snoring or sleeping, or when you see people sleeping, that also makes our mind want to do that sometimes. So I was trying to go through all these experiences and to see what's really going on here. Where's the Setapanavasa? Where's even the sleeping? Where's the sleeping place? Just like in this meditation, I was trying to ask you, where's the spirituality in the outside world? The sermon. It's so difficult sometimes for our mind to accept. But if you can sometimes win, that's already good. Do you have a question? See, I can't give you a very good answer. But you must know that to know that it happens, you can conclude. That's the first step, I would say. Knowing that it happens, you can conclude, because otherwise you couldn't live. Living would be pointless. And the thing is, even we can say, I don't know, we can say even in a chitta, aggregation happens. Without that, you can't have anything. See, sanya, what is sanya? Sanya means recognizing, right? So, recognizing what? We should say a pattern, isn't it? At least it must be a pattern. So even when we're talking about, this is how I understand it, and it fits well with this anicca understanding, everything is a body. Everything is an aggregation ultimately at the same. So anywhere you look, you always find aggregations. So from that point of view, but now when we're talking about one citta, we are talking about this 5 steps. One of them is recognition. See, now we can practice this. So recognizing can only be done when you have a pattern, right? How can otherwise you can recognize something? So for a pattern to be recognized, you must have a sort of aggregation. You must do aggregation before. In order to know that this is a 12, you must aggregate, don't you? Otherwise, what do you have? Points? Points. Points are so meaningless. Storyless, meaningless. I think that it happens because it's creating this firm ground for this feeling of existence, for this drama to be played. For the drama that it's like a stage, maybe something like a stage. This is like the stage on which jati can play the drama. But you have to clearly distinguish that this does not happen because of jati. There are two things completely different from each other, separate, which is aggregation, which is the reason why even a Buddha can talk to you, or an Arahant can talk to you. Because he can experience the world just like we do, as in the senses. But the realization is a different one. So that's why we usually explain it like you have this aggregation process and you have this undercurrent, which we call as jati. So the aggregation process doesn't happen because of jati, in the sense that if jati is not there, the aggregation can still happen. But it provides a good breeding ground for jati to happen, or to, it's like, that's why the Buddha has called this vijnana, as a magician. So, is there such a thing called magic? Actually, no. But sometimes certain situations appear to us very magical, isn't it? That is what a magician can do, right? What can a magician really do other than making it appear like magic? In that he's very good, skilled. That is what this is. Very skilled in making it appear like magic. But it's all up to each and every one of us to know what's really going on. So when you know that a magician can't do magic, then you can that's all you really need to know. See, one of the magic that it does is making you feel that you have a headache, that the pain that you feel happens in your head. As in, the pain that you feel, what is the pain that you feel? That's a touch. So when you feel the pain, then we call that a touch. What is a location of a touch? Mind, right? No location. In your body, pain doesn't happen. What we can say happens is that current flows, electricity. But there's nothing painful about that. So the touch happens, but aren't you able to give the pain a place? You can. And that's not a problem. Even an arahant can do that. That's why the Buddha was able to say to us that he had a back pain. Because if he wouldn't have told us, we would have never known. I assume nobody can, let's say, see what a Buddha experiences. Maybe he can do that. Maybe he can feel what you're feeling, or he can know what you're feeling. It's not feeling what you're feeling, but he can, with his mental powers, he might be able to tell you that is what you're experiencing right now. So he can do that, but I don't think anyone can do it with Buddha. So how could we know that he had a back pain if he didn't tell us? But he told us, so therefore we can conclude that he must have known that pain and back, so he can explain that. And when he goes to a doctor, he can also say, this is the pain and I have it there. So he aggregation happened there as well. So that's what I was trying to say. Aggregation happens, but and that happens in these many chittas after the touch. What is our job now? Our job is only to know that there's no fixed hand where the pain happens in. So this is how we usually think. Oh, there's a head. That's a unit. And there, pain is there. Isn't it? That's like how it happens in my mind. That is not what happens. Because you don't have a head, actually. How do we understand that you don't have a head? So we can say the head is consisting of electrons and protons. They don't listen to you. They listen to nature. So then you are not the owner. And they don't form a head. They are manifesting a head, we should say that. But it's not done, not finished. And it's not your head. There's a nice... See, I think in Dhammapada, the Buddha has given these analogies like how arahants are like a swan. It's when it's resting somewhere. I think that's how swans behave. When they are resting somewhere, you think they go from place to place, but they never leave anything. I think it's a seventh Vagga, second stanzas. I can't remember the stanza now, but if somebody can, please do help me out. But so the Arahant, he will feel like, so he never makes a nest, or he never makes a fixed home. So that's why he can always be free. Like a swan, if there's a bird and it creates itself a nest, then what does the bird have to do? It always has to come back to that place. And when it's not there, what will happen? It'll be worried. What happens there? And is it still there? Things like that. But if it doesn't create I don't know, if it doesn't create a nest, then wherever it is, that's where it is, right? That's where its home is. So, because it doesn't have any belongings, it's not carrying anything. See? That's the mind of an arahant. So how does that work practically? Let me ask you, are you a Sila Shravika? Are you a Dhamma practitioner? Is that who you are? Or is that or are you born as such when in certain situations, we could say? Or let's take a simpler example. Are you a mother or are you a father? Or are you a car owner? Is that who you are? Do you have a car? Or when the thought of the car happens to you, or not happens to you, when the thought of a car manifests, then this feeling of car owner happens. Yeah. So because where's the car in the outside world? The car which has the colors, the car which has and the possession, this mine, none of that is there. Not the mine part, not the not the colors and all the things that we attribute to the car. So that doesn't mean nothing is there, as you hopefully understand. The parts are there, or the causes are there. Some causes are there, electrons and protons, as you could say. Or you can take, as I explained, where's the Dhammasana here? What is the fixed difference between this and a mattress? You might as well use this for a mattress, isn't it? Now we use it for Dhammasana. So, but I feel this is a fixed Dharmasana. So, the mind happens, and there's this feeling, car owner. If you know that this is what you are really, now in the next thought that you are thinking about the news, you're reading the news, are you still a car owner? No. Now you are just the newsreader. So then what's your belonging? What do you really own? Nothing. So you are a head owner only when your head pain happens. But when we feel that there's my head, now that pains, so the pain comes from the head. So there's a head. So the pain comes to me or the mind. But pain is something mental, right? Mental. How can something mental travel through the body? How can something mental happen in something physical? Does that work? Does a corpse feel pain? So when a person dies, he's in a lot of pain, right? And because the pain happens is because of his head and his lungs. So when he dies, then what happens? Pains are still there, but he doesn't feel them anymore. Is that what happens? Mind doesn't arise. So then no causes, no effect. So that's it. Does it answer your question? Like there's a say. It is said. It is said that the karma happens, and when karma happens, it creates this seed for this stage to be uh, set again, right? Because in every karma there's always a necessity, and one necessity is always there, which is the necessity to exist, the necessity to see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, but mostly the necessity to experience separation. So the vipakas are born from that necessity. And that is the magic, the magician. But it's not magic. That's my answer. So we suffer because we have so many nests. So many nests. Here's a nest, there's a nest, there's a nest. And then when we are out here and flying around, then all these worries come to us of all these different nests. But like meditating is like killing the nests. Killing the nests not as in actually removing this, but to understand that these were just incidents. For example, You have maybe the village that you grew up in. The village, think about the village that you grew up in. Don't you still feel some deep sense of connection to that village? And yes, I mean, it's fine to know, to have the memories about it. And the fact that you know people there, that's all fine, but this deep emotional connection towards that. So it became a nest because it became part of you. But you who is here right now, have you lived in this village? Ever? So, but who you are today is also because of that village, isn't it? Definitely. So that you have to accept and you have to be grateful. I mean, that's what we could call noble gratefulness. Means gratefulness is there. But so you are also here because of that village, because of your teachers, and because of whatever that you have experienced. Not you have experienced, but because of the experiences. But you living in this village, was it not an incident? There was a necessity. You had to grow up. You had to live how to become an adult, and learn what it needs to be learned to be a human. Going to school. That necessity was there, and while that necessity was there, that effect manifested. That's all that you are. That's all your relation to that. It was just something that happened, even if it happened for a long time. As in, there's nothing that happens for a long time. One fixed thing which happens over a long time, but there's lots of causes, and therefore, yeah, we can say it like that. So it's like, who's the owner of this pen? Well, people have used it. It has been used based on necessities, but yeah, yeah. You can't separate it like this. You can't separate it by hand, like you separate, I don't know. You can separate these flowers by hand. You can't do that because you are not there to do that, right? You are not there. You are not separate from these two feelings to do something with them. Does it make sense? It was not meant to be complicated, but simply said, you can't separate them in the way you can separate flowers. But these two feelings happen. That's it. You can't get rid of this mental feeling as long as you have the causes there coming together. Right? This mental, so physical pain, and mental pain. Both of them are processes. Both of them you can basically remove when you remove one of the causes. As example, how can you remove the physical pain? Well, if you take a paracetamol or some kind of painkiller, you will be able to stop one of the causes, and this effect will no longer happen. For physical pain, one of the causes is this outside body and the biology of it. mental pain, of course, one of the causes for the mental pain is the physical pain, isn't it? You can only be angry about having a pain or upset as long as the pain is there. Otherwise, you can't be angry about that pain. So that's what we usually do. What do? We stop that, and this also goes. But the problem is, this ignorance and attachment and all these causes are going to be reinforced. I mean, this feeling of existence. So that what does it mean? If you stop the physical pain, because you don't like it to happen to you, now you have taken the Panadol and the painkiller, and you no longer feel the vexation as well. But the mind that comes out of this, let's say 5 minutes after the pain has gone, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, that mind feels what? Thank God I'm out of this trouble that I was in, and I hope it will never happen to me again. See, because this ignorance and attachment has been reinforced more. So what happens is, this mind now has one of the things it really doesn't like to experience at all, which is, I hope it never happens to me again. So recently I had this not ear infection, I had this ear blockage. I couldn't hear on my left ear. So if I were to think like, this happened to me a few weeks ago, now, then there will be this worry, what if it happens again? So I should do something for it not to happen again. So that is also good. To do something so it doesn't happen again is good. That you can do that with knowledge. Even the aggregation process can do this all by itself. From knowledge it can do and maintain life. But when you feel it happened to me and it might happen to me again, then it will be done with lots of vexation. That is the only part that will be removed. Even if I contemplate, I can realize now this was a problem that happened because causes came together. So for it not to happen to the chitta in the future, let's say, for this not to be a disturbance, or let's say, for it not to happen and to create unnecessary disturbance, let me manage it. So I'm going to make sure I don't get it again. But not that I will get it again, that it will happen, that it will manifest, that the causes will come together for that effect. So, but what you're asking maybe is another point, or let me explain you another small point regarding that is, see, you don't have to get rid of this physical pain to get rid of the mental pain. That's what you want to know. That's because you have to see, for this mental pain to happen, physical pain is one of the causes, but ignorance and attachment are also other causes. So these are three kinds of causes. So, mental pain will stop when you can contemplate on Dhamma. So, when you can see that it's not you who is experiencing the pain, you are the pain. Pain is the chitta. Pain is the causes come together and pain happens. Pain is that feeling, that chitta. So it's not that pain comes from somewhere and you're experiencing it. Pain is like a flame. Where does the flame come from? It doesn't come from anywhere. It's a process. So, then can the pain come from your body? So, this mental pain goes away when you realize what physical pain really is, you need to realize what physical pain really is. When jati happens in our mind, we feel this physical pain comes to me from somewhere. Just like I tried to give this idea, pain, isn't that something mental? A mental happening? Pain, like sound. Sound is happening, right? It's happening, it's a mental happening. So that is what you have to grasp. Then how can you feel it happens to you? How can you feel that it has any duration? See, there's in this world there are conventional problems, right? So for example, look at the pens on this desk. They are in a mess. Conventionally in a mess. Do you need to be in a mess to solve this? Actually, it's better you are not in a mess to solve this, because what you can see is this is a problem because this is how the causes come together. So all you can really do to solve a problem is remove one of the causes or rearrange the causes. That's how you can solve a problem. Does it have to be yours? Actually, because it's not something fixed, you can solve it. Because it's a process, you can rearrange the causes. And it doesn't have to be yours. I mean, what does a psychologist do with a patient? Actually, the less you feel that it belongs to someone, the more easier you can solve it, especially if you don't feel it's yours. For solving this mental pain, it's very easy. It's much easier to see. I mean, actually, only thing we have to see that it doesn't happen to someone. That's enough. It doesn't have an owner. So when you think about any problem in life, about something that happens, not to someone, but just because there are some causes which make it manifest, then the solution will be obvious to you how you can solve this. Because by removing one of the causes, it doesn't matter whether it's yours or someone else's, conventionally speaking. Absolutely speaking, it's never any of that. But even conventionally speaking, that's the only logic you can apply. And that's something that you can practice not just with the pain, but actually everything in life. See, even when you are at work, when you're at school, wherever you go, problems will be there. When the mind makes it something fixed, then it's something that happens to someone, something that I have, then it'll be more difficult. And actually, see, when people ask, how can I use this Dhamma to come out of lust? Then there's an answer. And that answer is very important. And you have to learn how to do that. But the thing is, if you get hung up about solving this particular problem, you will lose yourself. You can lose yourself because, I mean, there was once a story recently. There was someone who told me in the morning, let's say, this person had a problem of lust. So all night he was struggling to apply the Dhamma, but he couldn't make it. But it's not that anything happened, because Kantita Paramangta Potitika, so you can bear it. And if you go to the next the group discussion or the next sermon, or you talk with a noble friend, then that might be the moment Actually, when you're not trying to solve it, it will solve. Actually, it stops. It's not like you have to solve it. You come to your awareness and the problem is no longer there. It's not like you can actually solve this problem. But what our mind always tries to do is it tries to solve all these things. And you can't do that. Because with solving something, you always first start by acknowledging its existence as a fixed thing. And then you are lost. You can't win. Because you have already failed. And anything else from there on will no longer work. So this is something our mind happens to our mind a lot. We are the one meditating. There's someone meditating. When there's someone meditating, nothing works, isn't it? Because that means there's no awareness. But when meditation happens, as in, then it always happens. Anything always happens. But sometimes the mind doesn't feel it like that. So what I'm trying to say is that, see, I wouldn't advise anyone to go about and use the Dhamma according to the way that he or she wants to solve his problems. Because Dhamma can't be used to your agenda. You can't use the Dhamma to solve this jealousy problem I have, let me get rid of this. But the desire problem, it's not a problem, the desire I have, let me keep that. You can't do it like that. Because it's not for you to use, it's to be used. So that means the problems will go when we are deserving of their freedom. We will get rid of this particular problem when we deserve to be free from that. We can't know when it will happen. All we can really do is practice. There will be a day when this problem will solve. It will not happen on that day, it will happen with every day more. Sometimes you don't see it. It's like a Chinese bamboo tree. You will see the tree maybe in 10 years, but it's not like every day until then hasn't been part of it growing, isn't it? Because actually you can say, when does a tree start growing? Is it when you put the seed into the soil? Or isn't it since 1,000 years it has already started to grow? It has already started growing. Because how do you have the idea to plant it? Well, that must have come from somewhere. Because you can't separate anything, right? When did something start, the tree? When did it start growing? Where's the seed come from? The seed came from somewhere. So that was the beginning of it already. And your thought of planting it was already there before you put the seed in there. So that was also there. So where do you want to stop this thinking? You can't ever stop it. Because everything is depending on each other. So in that sense, what I'm trying to say is that don't worry about, and the thing is, see, if I want to solve this problem of lust that I'm having with the Dhamma, then I start with naturally the mind starts to acknowledge lust is something I have. It's a big problem. It's such a big, harder problem than the problem of anger or anything else. So you see, you can't win this anymore. But that's why you can understand the Dhamma, especially at the beginning, and you can. So I shared with you some examples of being mindfully aware recently, right? The bed and the sounds, and we practiced a little bit today how to apply it in this moment. See, any of these situations, if you win once, because the Dhamma is very simple. There's only one strategy for all problems, right? So if you know how to solve the problem of the disturbance with the sound and the bucket, if you get that right, eventually you will be able to solve the pain problem as well. It might not be able to be something you can do today or tomorrow. Because when this pain happens to you, you are lost. Your mind is lost. That's okay. You can't do anything. Habits are there, and you can't win this completely. But so what still you can do something in this moment. Even in that moment, there's something you can do. It's not like you say, this problem is too hard for me to solve now, so I should just not do anything. No. There'll be something you can do, and that you will do. Try. That's already good. Trying to, let's say you're trying, that means you're thinking, now this is how it should be, then you try to apply this, and you're creating a path. And that is already something that next time you're doing it will also be there, that path. In that sense, it's already good. So you can always do something. But don't expect that you can get rid of the problem according to the way you want. It won't happen like that. And then try to practice it on simple examples. See, when I was meditating on the bed, I was in a reasonably good environment to do that. I think we have to stop now. Yeah. That's the last sentence. So I was in a reasonably calm environment to do that, and that's when mindful awareness happens first. As you have more and more, you can extend it to other situations as well. It will happen naturally. So you just do like that. Until then, and always you can maintain the pain as everything else. As you learned how to do that, as everyone knows. Okay. So, I hope you got something from today's session. Do you have a question? Yes. Yeah. 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 Mm. Yeah. 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 Yes. It's not disturbing anything because there's nothing fixed to be disturbed, right? You can't. That's why there's no change in this world. You can't change something because it's not fixed, not created to change. All that really happens is now causes come together and create a different effect. So, but when you feel that there's a sermon, and then this is the disturbance to the sermon, but where's really the sermon when the hearing of the bucket happens? Because there's no you who's always there who's listening to a sermon. The sermon is the sound and the listening, the seeing and the hearing. But these are effects. So when that bucket happens, no causes are there for these effects. So then you can't say that is a disturbance to that sermon that you're listening to. But when the mind is ignorant, or what tends to happen is, because with memory, even this aggregated mind that so the bucket sound happens, then there's an aggregation, listening to the bucket, and before that I was listening to the sermon. That becomes one big story in the mind, and then the mind doesn't realize it's just a story. It feels, there's a continuous me who has listened to the sermon. Now this bucket interrupts this, what I'm doing right now. Then the problem happens. But you realize that's just a feeling, because there's no continuous thing. That's one way to apply. Yeah. Let us then share all the merits that we have done by coming here, contemplating on Dhamma, practicing the path, improving ourselves in virtues and morality, and observing sila, and all the merits that you have done in the last 7 days as well. First and foremost, let us take a moment to transfer the merits that we have all acquired today by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting Pirit, by coming to the sermon, listening to the sermon, making offerings to the Buddha, and various meritorious deeds that we have done today. First and foremost, let's transfer these merits to all the bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas, upasikas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha. Let's also transfer these merits to all members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all of the chapters, as well as all the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who've always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's also transfer these merits to Guru Swami Nohanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery, as well as the Anagarika and Anagarika attached to the monastery. Let's also transfer these merits and express our gratitude to all those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these sermons, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. If any of them have been born in the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for the sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha by providing the four requisites, by sharing their knowledge and extending their well wishes. May, through the power of these merits, they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons, daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employers, employees, and to all those who've helped us and supported us in the past. And may through the power of these merits they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain a supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to the gods and deities, Devas and Brahmas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakradeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who are committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddhasasana. Let's also transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May through the power of these merits they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our ancestors, all those who have predeceased us, all those who have been family and friends to us in this infinitely long journey of samsara. Let's also transfer these merits to all members of the armed forces as well as the police forces who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those who lost their lives in the war, be they friend or foe, rejoice in the merits we have acquired today. Let's also transfer these merits to all those who lost their lives in natural calamities, such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, and pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who've been family and friends to us in this infinite long journey of samsara. May through the power of these merits they be healed of any physical and may through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, let us all resolve that, may through the power and blessings of all the merits we've acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of arahants on this blessed land. And finally, let us all resolve that may, through the power of all the merits we have acquired today, you and I and everyone who has helped to make this program a success, become an Arahat Nahanse, an Arahat Mihina Nahanse, in this very life itself, and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now the Mahasangha will transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnin midatva, dvesha ginnin midatva, moha ginnin midatva, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, sukhita taravatva, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, sukhita taravatva, mamada siyalu loka, siyalu satvayo, Nibbāna parama sukhayin Sukita tara vetnva Nibbāna parama sukhayin Sukita tara vetnva Nibbāna parama sukhayin Sukita tara vetnva Raga gini niveva Dvesha gini niveva Moha gini niveva Nivan sapa labheva Nivan sapa labheva Nivan sapa labheva Tunuruwangi Suvisi Ananta Mahaguna Belen Siela Loka Siela Satyo Nibbāna Paramasukhin Sukhitara Vedva Sadhu Sadhu